magnificent, abundant Laura Waldman. Did I say that correctly?
Lara Waldman, but
Lara
you know,
Waldman,
North
yes.
Americans have a hard time saying Lara. It's
Yes,
fine.
yes, Laura. So I say it correctly. I get my name gets mispronounced all the time. So that's what I was
I'm
like, let me
sure it
ask.
does.
But yeah, thank you all for joining in today. My Tea with Tonias were started for the purpose of spreading good out into the world. When I opened up my business, I started to really meet some great people doing some wonderful things out in the world, having heart-centered businesses. And I kind of realized, like, where were these people before? And I'm so fortunate with the people that I meet in my life that I'm like, I would love to share the stories and these conversations that I'm having so that people could be aware that things are possible. And it's sort of my way of combating the news and the negativity that I always feel is always on the mainstream, and coming with some positive stories out there in the world. And I think no better time for abundance right now than what's going on now in the world. And so you and I met through a mutual friend, through Nicola, and you had come to a sacred money circle. And then we connected after that on our stories of just how our work is very similar in the work we do in the world. So I would just
Mm.
love for you to share with everyone who you are, where you're from, and just what you do, and all the magic you do with what you do.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. It's lovely to be here. My tea with Tonia. Yeah, so I am also known as the Abundance Activator. I'm the author of Money Manifestation Mastery, and I specialize in helping conscious business owners, entrepreneurs, change makers, visionaries expand into the next level of their impact, their influence, their income. I've been working as a healer, a spiritual coach channel for 18 years. I've been on this path of transformation, self-development, healing, my own personal journey for
Yeah.
25 years. I've moved through mountains of stuff. And when I got very, very fascinated with the work of basically the fact that we have the power to consciously create our lives.
Yes, we
So a
do.
huge amount of the work that I do is like transforming our inner game to create our physical reality. And it's pretty fun, it's pretty magical. And yes, there's the practical action bits as well, but so much that runs us goes on within. So that's really my thing. It's like the
Mhm.
spiritual, mental, emotional parts of us that create our experience of reality and the results in our business and our bank account.
Yeah, I love that. And that's what we so connected on, was just realizing that we both understand the concept of, like, our thoughts create our reality, and that we really do have the power to create what we want in our lives. And that impacts our money as well. Like, we are the creator behind money, and knowing that. And so,
Mm.
yeah, I've always loved connecting on the outside, but kind of what I feel doesn't get talked about so much. I always feel like we always see the finished product of someone and what's,
Mm.
when we land. But what I love to share and hear stories, and sharing the stories, is like, what was the pain point, or like what were the struggles along the way that sort of then led you to this occupation? I know that you've had many years of doing it, but I kind of love to hear like just a couple of them that come to mind, because I'm a big believer in expressing how the fear and the challenges are a part of the journey. Because I think a lot of the time that's where some can stop in thinking that something's
Mm.
wrong, and that's actually the moment to lean in, because on the other side is all that we want. So yeah, if
Yeah,
you could just share a
100%.
little bit of your pain, fear stories, whatever feels right to you to share.
Brilliant. I'm so glad because honestly, I'm always moving through, pain, fear stories, and that really is a huge part of this path as well. I'm glad
Yeah.
you're talking into that. I mean, goodness, 25 years, I've got a lot of pain stories, but the ones that jump out I mean,
Yes.
really, I was on this, I came from money. I came from an abundant childhood that was, devoid of the kind of emotional security and emotional
Mm,
connection, and really the feeling of, I know I was loved technically, but I didn't feel this sort of loving presence and emotional support. So physically, we had everything.
right.
And then one of the big turning points was my whole family the system broke down, and I really just changed everything in my world. But what I hadn't realized is that I'd unconsciously rejected money and wealth,
Mm,
because I then got on this sort of spiritual path and started to feel these feelings of home and love and connection and feeling of peace. And I was like, this is the answer.
yeah.
I really rejected the material world, not consciously, because I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I've found like source, connection, love, this is it. And it wasn't until then that I got pregnant at 26 and had my first child, which I loved. And then it wasn't
Mm,
until I had my second child that I really started to feel this clamp down around money. I hadn't focused on money.
mm,
I hadn't thought about money. We were now, one income. My husband's kind of limited income with four of us. We used to share the house with, lodgers and flatmates.
mhm,
And then suddenly we just weren't bringing enough money to cover our costs, and we were living so simply. And I just remember hanging endless amounts of laundry. The house was in a constant mess with two little
mm.
kids, feeling like, what is going on
Yeah.
here? I felt so limited and stuck and frustrated when it came to money. I saw this big purpose, wanting to make a big difference. And then I finally sat down and asked, because when I asked questions, I could get really beautiful information. And I finally
Mhm.
sat down and said, what is going on with this planet and money? And it never even occurred to me to ask, because that was my first big pain point around money. And then that was the start of turning my whole money story around, which honestly has been, that's been 10 years of
Yep.
a big journey. So there's lots more pain from that, but that was the big boom moment where I finally was willing to even look at it, explore it. And then honestly, the floodgates open from that point. But that's the first one that jumps out to share with you.
I love it. There's so many. I would like want to write down everything that you're sharing because it's so juicy and good. But the biggest thing that strikes is the unconscious. Like we are unaware that these beliefs we took them on somewhere along the way, and we were just not aware of it. And yet, those are the things that are blocking us from getting to the next level of things. And I also love how you also expressed how you could have money, but be un not fulfilled emotionally. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really big misconception when it comes to money and thinking like some people can think the opposite. If they don't have money, like, oh, when I get money, and then all of a sudden there's going to be all this happiness, and it's not. Happiness is something we create ourselves. And you said it so well. Ask yourself the questions, and who knew you would get the answers. And
Mm.
so that was such a great love, that because it's such a powerful share for people to just know like we have the answers. you
Mm.
know we could call that for ourselves.
Yeah. And for me, like I've realized I just had a big pendulum swing of both experiences. Like then I had all the love and all the spirituality and all the connection with no money. And that didn't work either.
Yeah.
And what I came to is, what if we could like merge both worlds together? Because
Yes.
it's, if you're broke and you have no money, you're really
Yes.
limited.
Yes.
So I'm like, this is what my life, took me on that journey. And I've learned everything the hard way. Everything I teach has come from lots of pain, but it was like waking me up. It's like, it's not one or the other. What if we could merge both and
Yeah.
make money a really beautiful experience?
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Well,
going for anyways.
I'm with you on it. That's why when we first met, I'm like, oh my God, someone who really is doing the same and believes the same thing. And, I learned so much with that too, where it was like, practical and then intuition, and learning to blend the two is where harmony starts to come with money. And in doing it that way, and not learning this, but learning it not through a book, but the hard way, through life's experiences
Yeah.
and doing
Yeah.
that. And another great thing that you said early on in the beginning was just right. The fear never goes away. I feel like fear is such a, you have the words fearless and push through, and like it never goes away. And it still surprises me sometimes, like when I reach the next level and I'm doing something, I'm like, here it is again. And I have to remind myself, like, oh, it never goes away. I just have a healthier relationship with it. And I wonder,
Yeah.
what's your experience with fear as it comes up in sort of like your relationship or chatter with it?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so good. I'm so glad you're talking about this again, because honestly, I will be like hand on heart honest. The first sort of, I don't know, 15 years of my healing and transformation work, I was trying to rid myself of the bad feelings, right? Because I guess I was going for enlightenment. I'm not going to lie. I was like, I'm going to get to that place of love, the place that I found when I'd meditate and I'd do my healing work. I'd get this very high frequency and feel everything was just like beautiful. And
Mhm.
then I'd get slammed back down and into the world, and I'd be like, what's wrong with that? This is something I have to heal, I have to fix, I have to transform. And I
Mhm.
still sometimes use those words, but the truth is that actually our emotions are here for us, right? Like, this so well, but I've learned that the fear I use it to activate myself now, whether it's
Yes.
anger, fear, pain, grief, feeling alone, whatever it is. I use it for my transformation now. I'm like, oh, maybe it's not about getting rid of any of it. It's just about working with
Yes.
whatever life is showing you, right? But it honestly, it took me a lot of like healing work to finally go. I'm like 20 years in, I'm like, maybe this, either I'm really screwed up or maybe this is part of life, right? So it's
Yes.
funny how I again learned that the hard way. And rather than being something wrong with me, what if like our emotions are very right? Like what if they're here for us
Yes.
to, and to work with it rather than against it? So I'm now like, bring it on. Whatever life brings, I'm like, here it is for me. There's
Yep.
a wave of fear. And yes, we can transform and transcend. I've released so much of the grip of my fear. Like honestly, like when I first started showing up visibly and talking about this stuff publicly, it was my
Yeah.
worst fear. I actually thought I was going to die. That's how it was.
Mhm.
That's gone now. But there's
Yeah.
new fears. There's new
Yeah.
ones that love to come and present themselves. So there's evolution through them,
Yes.
but the emotions don't go away. It's just how we work with them, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, I love this conversation so much because I feel like that's such the misconception, especially, and then I know I've had the same when going into the spiritual world. I was so afraid too because there can be this shaming of anger and negative emotions, and not everyone, but of this right positive world that everything's always supposed to be joyful and abundant and light. And I was like, I'm not. I wake up angry. Like I wake up, not always feeling this great. Like I have to work towards that. So there was a little bit of
Yeah.
feeling broken in a sense. And I've used that language with myself. Like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not like everyone else who's happy? And then that's when I just started to realize, like, oh, this is just emotions. Like, my whole thing with abundance is joy. So I'm like, in order for me to feel joy, I have to then feel my sadness as well. I'm like, one is not apart from the other. And so is the same thing with
Yeah.
fear. It's like we have to
Yeah.
then learn to love all of ourselves, which means that's also this shadow side self, and really
Totally.
learning what that chatter sounds like and loving it just as much as the joy. Because it's really easy to love joy, but you know,
100,000,000% yes to what you just said. I
yeah,
found that's so important. It's actually our one of the things I talk about a lot is that our abundance lies in the shadows of shame. The abundance
yes,
lies in the shadows of the self, the part of ourselves that we've rejected, we've separated from, we've disconnected from. And again, I've learned this the hard way because I
mhm,
have a lot of emotions. I had a lot of anger as a child. I've got a lot of
mhm,
passion. I got a lot of, I feel everything so deeply. I'm very
yes,
emotional. So I've had to
mhm,
learn how to work with them and let them move through. And I too was on the sort of spiritual, if I'm a spiritual healer, I need to be like, la, like peace and love all the time. And then
yeah,
like, behind the scenes, I'd be like, rah. So, but actually, no, it's all here. It's all part of it. And actually, then it's real, like authentic joy, isn't it? Or authentic abundance when it's like
yes,
rooted and it's not ungrounded, it's grounded joy, it's embodied joy or embodied abundance, which is much richer and much
yes.
more kind of tangible, I think.
Yeah, and I think the word that's popping up as you're saying that, it's like gratitude for it, because you've gone
Mm.
through like you worked for it in a sense, sort of like,
Yeah.
it's through that sadness and through that, and just um I know for me the greatest difference that I saw in my what I call like enlightened path or whatever it was is that the chatter changed. So instead of
Mm.
hating myself through the anger and everything else, now I'm just like, okay, well, it's here to serve me. So
Yeah.
what do you want to say? What would you like to show me? And
Mm.
just kind of
Mm.
having it be a friend versus it be this, what's wrong with me? Why am I broken? And allow that to
Perfect.
just be, like you said, a gift. And all of our emotions are a gift, but it could be a lot more of owning the pretty gifts versus what they consider the bad gifts. But I always know on days that I'm feeling down, on the next day, I have such like beautiful golden nuggets come through on those days. So I kind of know, like, oh, something good is going to happen. I'm like, because I'm feeling really shitty right now. I'm like, so there's got to be something good. Like, there's almost like I could laugh about it now when I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we've got something happening right now. So there's going to be some really big insight that's going to come through eventually.
Oh my God. Yeah, we can laugh now, right? We can laugh now, but it's awful when you're in it. But
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so true. I mean, that's 100% the same for me. There's a break. It's like the breakdown before the breakthrough, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, man. But you shared, I usually ask, like, what's the money story that you had to overcome in your journey? But I feel like you had said that that was I mean, well, so what was your money story that you had to overcome in your
Well,
journey?
my money story, and I mean, there's so much to my money story, but actually, the theme that I've noticed for myself, but I've noticed this with every single woman that I've talked to, right? Every single woman that I've
Mhm.
coached, which are now hundreds and hundreds, is not feeling good enough,
Mm,
not feeling worthy, like that something about me was bad and unlovable and not deserving. So I
mhm,
was in this very overgiving, trying to help and save the world, and give out, but I wasn't able to receive in. So learning how to manifest, I talk about money manifestation, but it's really about receiving yourself. So
yes.
it was all the bits of the part of me that was rejecting money and not able to receive it and take care of it and love it and look after it, was the part of myself that I'd
Mhm.
rejected.
Yeah.
And it was my bad. I call it my bad. And it's like the part of me that, yeah, there was shame in there, bad. And actually turns out my bad is my gift. Like my bad is my gift. And it was a part of me that felt
Mm,
too much, too intense, I feel too much, which are all
yes.
like my psychic gifts and also my gifts to feel. And actually the fact that I do light work and I do shadow work, I do both.
Right.
And I was like hiding the shadow work part of myself. Um, it's so fascinating. So I would say it's just not feeling good enough, not feeling lovable. And honestly, like that has been a mountain to climb. I really feel like I've just busted through another
Mhm.
level, which now feels like I'm out, but you never know. There'll usually be another wave.
Yes.
But honestly, it's been a 25-year journey to finally go, oh my God, maybe I'm not
Yeah.
bad. And I don't think it has to take that long, by the way. But and also you don't know, like when it's something in the shadows, you don't know it's there. And then it just starts to reveal as you do the money journey, it starts to
Mhm. Yep.
reveal itself more and reveal itself some more. So I didn't know this 10 years ago, and now I know. And let's see what reveals itself 10 years from now.
So much good in there. The reframe. I love your reframe in owning the gift behind the bad, right? And what you consider
Yeah.
it that way, because that's how I also feel about fear. Like whatever we fear
Mm,
is probably our greatest gift is on the other side of that.
totally. Yeah.
And so having that and just recognizing that and just having a conversation about that. But the saying about the not enough and the too much, I mean, I've related to all of them and have gone through and continue to go through those each time there's something new in my life.
Mm.
Those conversations come up. It's why I always say, like, life is like a spiral where I'm like, oh, hello, old friend, you're going to come back again. Okay. I must have been on another level. It's when I realized some things just don't go away. I've been doing it long enough now where the patterns are coming through. I'm like, oh my God, they never leave. I'm like, why didn't anyone tell me this? Like, you just recognize it and maybe move through it quicker,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's still there. It's just you, I guess, see it quicker or recognize it versus being like, what's wrong and moving through it. But
Well said. Yeah. It's about facing it and not fighting it.
mm,
And then you spend less time fighting yourself, basically. And
yeah,
just
yeah,
you
because
move
it's the
through it
fight.
faster. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the resistance, the fight that has it linger
Yeah.
versus I found the acceptance of things now. I'm like, oh wow, I moved that really quickly. Whereas in the past, this could have been like months I've been
Yeah.
lingering on this. And so it's
Yeah.
just really cool to recognize that. So I love also that you said for anyone listening, it doesn't have to take 25 years. It doesn't have to take that long. It's always going to be there. So throughout your journey, you're always going to have these conversations, but they get quicker to move through and recognizing that. And
Mm.
support, I mean, I also know for me, I didn't do all of this work on my own. And I'm sure that there were people
No.
who supported you along the way in doing that, which then helps so that we don't have to go through this journey on our own either.
No. And I mean, now we've talked about this, is I have more support than I've ever had ever. right? Because
Yep.
actually, I found we grow faster with support. You and I both know this now.
Yep.
I mean, I come from the lone wolf. I can do it I literally used to say I can do it by myself when I was a little kid.
I'm with that
No,
tribe.
you can't, Lara.
That was my
But you can.
superwoman cape. That was it.
Yeah.
I thrived on that belief. Like, I don't need anyone. I've got this.
Yeah.
Like, look how strong I am. I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
And it's true. And it's like, but does it have to be that hard? And that's the long, hard, lonely path. And I've done that path. And now I'm like, it's much better to have people walking this path with you. And it can go faster. It can be much more joyful, much more abundant,
there
where
it
you
is.
feel loved and safe and supported. That's kind of a nice path.
It's a lot
I
more
choose
fun.
that.
We could
Yeah.
still do it and but it's just really painful and it's just hard.
Mm.
And I think that that's when I really started to understand what abundance was, and that it's not attached to a dollar amount, in which it's a state of being, it's a state of mind, it's choices that each individual, we each choose to make our lives more joyful. And for everyone, it's different. But I
Yeah.
mean, I found the same way. Inviting in support and receiving support has made this journey so much fun. Like, now I could laugh about my fears and things. And I'm like, oh, having a crazy moment. Here we go. Like, something is happening. And there's joy now. There's a lot of joy now that starts to happen in the journey, which is really, really nice.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. And so that's why I love the questions. Just go into the next one. So, in what ways do you experience joy in your life, or things that you do to invite joy in your life?
Mm. Well, I do lots of things. I do a lot of self-care because I don't always wake up feeling good. Do you know what I mean? I don't always wake up like this.
Glad I'm not the only one.
No, I don't. So I've learned it's about I work for joy. Do you know what I mean? I do a lot of things. So
So well said.
I move my body. I get out in nature. I have my dog. I do a lot of connecting now, having deep, heartfelt, soulful, honest connection conversations totally gets me back on track. So I have a lot of those actually now, more than ever. Um, Doing a meditation, eating well, connecting with my family. It's a lot about connection in there, whether it's nature or like-minded people, to myself, and then obviously working with my clients. So I just feel amazing when I do my work supporting my clients. It's just brings me so much joy. I love being in nature. I mean, that is one of the big ones for me too. But and living in London's a bit more challenging, but it's still possible. I still find it. I make myself find nature in the big
Mm-hmm.
city. And traveling, I love going on new adventures. I love adventures, and whether that's on the mind or spiritual
Yes.
adventures or
Well
adventures in my
said.
business. Adventures in consciousness is actually makes me feel very alive, and there's always more to explore and discover. So those are the things I would say.
I love it. I'm writing down your golden nuggets because said I work for joys and adventures in consciousness. That's just golden nuggets right there. Because it's true. And another illusion that I think is out there, that people are, yes, there are some people who are naturally joyful, but it is something to work at. Like, similarly, I have a morning routine in order to keep me in that state of being and everything else. So it
Yeah,
is something, it's a practice. It's a practice
yeah.
to work at in order in doing that. And so, ooh, in these times, I have guided meditation. That was alarm to remember that there's one at 12 o'clock every day that just went off.
Brilliant.
Yeah, especially now, it's sort of like a doubling up on self-care right now, because
Absolutely.
fear is at an all-time high. So, like, doubling up on the self-care to stay in a place of joy right now is, yeah, it's taking a little bit more. But yeah, and then I would just love for you to just share a tool, a message, something that you would have told yourself, something that you would just like to share with people listening about, what to do in their dreams and their journey, just a golden nugget of some sort.
Well, what's really like bursting in my heart now is, even though we're in heightened times of fear and the economy, and it's so, well, I was going to say it looks so real and it feels so real, but the same principles apply than ever before. I wrote about this in my book, Money Manifestation Mastery. It is still possible to create a life of joy and abundance and to manifest money and to create powerfully, even when it looks like the world's, in absolute turmoil.
Mm.
Right now, everything is amplified like never before. So where your energy goes, where your focus goes, energy flows. So it is even more essential to transmute and transcend and move the fear through your body and to come back into joy. And if you go into fear around money or scarcity, or maybe your business is really affected, or your job's affected, there's always a way through. There's always a portal that is opening. We need to be adaptable and be willing to change. And I talk a lot about listening to your heart, your inner guidance. Your inner guidance your intuition will never speak in fear. It's always about possibilities. So right now, this practice is come back to joy. It's not that the fear isn't there, but we can work with it, love it, transform it, come back to joy, come back to possibility. There's meditation, journaling. Reach out to someone that will uplift you, not that will feed the fear. Because right now there's so much that's just feeding. So right now, my practice is I'm more disciplined and focused than ever, because I could feel myself getting pulled into fear streams. And actually my inner guidance is telling me there's more opportunities now than ever before. But that's not what it looks like, right? This has always been the case with manifesting, with creating your life. Creating a joyful, abundant life, but it's just everything's amplified. So all the same principles apply, even because this is the challenge. It looks like, maybe there isn't enough, let's just say, but actually there's always enough. But we have to release the fear, because when human beings go into fear, we've seen what happens, right? People start grabbing, snatching, hoarding. It's not pretty. And it's just, it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle. So it's not feel the fear, but use all the tools you can to come back to joy, to abundance, connection, and then you'll start to see. It's like your mind opens to possibilities. So this is my big thing right now. It's always been the case, but it's just more important than ever before.
Just love you, and so well said, so perfect also for right now. And I'm going to go back and watch it and basically transcribe it and put it out there, because that was just perfection in saying it that way. The fear is what blocks the abundance. The fear is actually what has things stop the flow. And then when we come from a place of joy, there are things possible. So learning how to just start focusing on that and creating that in our lives, so that's how we are the manifestors of our lives, by knowing that we are the source of it. We control that regardless of what's the world is showing around us. It's standing strong, in our vision of what it is that we want to create, regardless of what's happening around us. So
exactly. And honestly, I've been honing these skills for years and years and years, and it's just more, but it's always been the same. It's very hard for our mind, to see an alternative reality when what we see in front of us is what we're seeing. But honestly, we just have to dig a little deeper now and reach out. The key words I'm hearing right now are connection, collaboration, cooperation. We're not supposed to do this alone. We were never meant to do this alone. And lean in, reach out. We're both here to support you, right? This is what we do. This is our job. Reach out and connect and
listen to it and see what there is, the opportunity to see what's in the gap, if there is, and then having it be different and choosing something different. And for any of you who want to know more about Lara, I already have it posted, but I'm gonna post where they could find you on social media and all of your websites, so that if they want to learn more, work with you, all that information will be there. It's been an honor chatting with you today. I love that we got to share what our beautiful conversations get to be, and now they get to be shared out there. And for anyone else who's watching, stay tuned, because I'm also going to be doing classrooms to start teaching about just the financial literacy side of things, and offering that during these times as well. And just thank you everyone for joining. Stay in your joy as much as you can. Listen to the fear, but then ground in the joy, and as much as you can, operate from that intention and from that place. Lara, thank you again so much for joining us and me today and playing with me. And thank you everyone, and have a lovely, beautiful Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.